Welcome to the Business of Defense. I'm Rich Brady, your host and CEO at the American Society of Military Comptrollers. ASMC proudly sponsors this podcast on Federal News Network. ASMC is the premier association of finance and accounting professionals who work in government and business in the defense sector. Our goal is to bridge the gap between the boardroom and the battlefield, to drive financial transformation, to improve the field of financial management and advance the mission of national security. My guest today is Leanne Hope, founder and president of FTS Federal. FTS Federal focuses on IT systems and automation in the audit and audit readiness space, working in the areas of data analytics, readiness, business process reengineering, and modernization. FTS is an economically disadvantaged women-owned small business with Leanne as its founder. As an entrepreneur, she took the leap in to build a company that delivers the most innovative technology services possible to the federal government. And as FTS says, there is no shortage of data in the public sector. Getting valuable real-time insights is often the challenge. I'm eager to hear more of Leanne's story and where she sees the market opportunities for FTS today and in the future. Leanne, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Let's jump right in. As we've talked to a lot of guests here on the Business of Defense, the defense sector is, the contracting space it's crowded, it's large, it's complex. You've got the bigs and the smalls. Where is FTS Federal's niche in that space?
So I have the benefit of having done this twice now. So a lot of times small businesses they have to be in business. So they oftentimes will do work that is, it's dollars, right? But maybe not their niche. Having done this twice now, I call it tuition that I've learned from scraped elbows and knees of mistakes made, lessons learned, and I'm able to launch FTS. So FTS, I can tell you exactly what we do not do and what we do, and I think that being in a small business space and doing the type of work we do, that's important and sometimes not the case with other small businesses in the marketplace. So we are niche, we're boutique, we're not an IPA, we're not an RSA, we're a consulting firm that delivers in solutioning. So we have, and I've been a program manager on day one of Air Force fireworks, so we have those insights to come in, and we're able to take those lessons learned and understand the business. What are we trying to accomplish, knowing that we have to abide by some of these pretty complicated and complex compliance issues. So we do fire. Fire's very complicated.
Right.
We also have to do business, and I love that that's the name of the podcast, because that's the part that's missing sometimes and that gets lost in all of these regulations, compliance that we deal with uniquely in the DoD. We have to the mission has to happen. The business has to happen. So when we do fire, when we do ICAM work, when we do RMF and cyber, that's in the forefront, that we have to be able to do the business while also, these are very important things that we can't slip up on. I have friends in the commercial space that do similar things that we do. And credentialing is important in banking. Cyber is important in banking. However, we have a little bit more at stake in what we do and the systems that we tie into. So when we're doing an ICAM wiring diagram, the complexity of everything that's touched with the millions of feeder systems, and it has to be compliant across the board, those things get pretty challenging. So our firm will come in, we do some risk assessment, we do a lot of that where it's maybe not a Deloitte worthy, it's not the size of one of the big four, but we need to go in and a commander needs to understand what's the cost of migrating this one piece to the cloud, or if it's happening to them, something that, where's my cheese, if you will, somebody is moving something up, what does this mean for me? How do I go about doing my business, how do we get through the day-to-day business operations with the new norm, the new requirements? You remember that when fire first came out, it was a 4-letter word.
I think it still is,
okay.
Maybe, in some circles.
Maybe softening the 4-letterness of it, if you will, to then go about, okay, this is a regulation, it's important, there's a reason for it, and we've got to deal with it. So making that a little bit smoother for some of our end users is something that we do pretty often.
How hard is it to stay within your niche? I mean, there's a lot of opportunities out there, and it can probably be pretty alluring to go after all these different contract opportunities. So how difficult is it to stay in your niche and focus on your long-term growth objectives?
So that's a great question because it is harder than one would think. To turn down business is a difficult thing for a small business. I mean, we are in growth mode. We've hired a new chief growth officer. So it is difficult. What we tend to do is there's organic growth that we really look for. So when we're looking at opportunities, a lot of times we're doing a smaller ICAM piece. We're on the ICAM program at the DoD level at DISA. We can go in and speak to other clients who have issues that are smaller. So then what about this? Well, what about this? Well, what about this? So they tend to organically grow when they start out small. So we found that keeps us sort of in our lanes, if you will. And we also have, FTS is about our people. So when we have these subject matter experts that have done this type of work, I'm not opposed to taking on a piece of work and then subbing out pieces that are not our need. I mean, I'm not saying we wouldn't do that, but we have the experts that do what we do. And I do not want to kind of, just bleed out into all these other veins to say, yes, we do everything. We are definitely not the company that does everything. We do a very specific thing and we do it well.
You mentioned that this isn't your first company, right? You had one before. So can you kind of walk us through that, because you obviously learned a lot from that experience. So the first company to the creation of FTS Federal, and what were some of those lessons learned along the way?
So 2007, Company A, through 2018 is when we founded FTS. Hard lessons learned just in being a small business. I had, solutioning was not new to me. I worked for a gigantic company. I had one of the largest telecom programs. It was, we were running back and forth to India, doing testing back in the day. So that part wasn't new to me. The work wasn't new, but the running of the business is a whole different animal. So lessons learned, I don't know, becoming ISO certified in the middle of running a business versus FTS, we have that all handled in day one. We know everything that we have to do to be certified. We've done it before, and we can start that way instead of trying to, I would say, where the plane is flying, right? Yeah. So that was a big one, CMMC certification, ISO certification in the middle of running the business, in the middle of 45 folks out in the field. That's a difficult one to learn, and there's just loads of those experiences where you just don't know what you don't know, and you don't know issues until they pop up. So I call that tuition. All those problems are tuition, and I earned a PhD in tuition in running a small business. Loads of just small things. It does not make sense to have one contractor in California. Right. It costs too much, and the regulations, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I didn't really think about that when we had a chance to expand to Edwards. I was like, yes, expand, let's go, let's do it, So little things like that along the way that are hiccups. And then there's been some costly ones as well where we go after something and it's very costly, and looking at that same opportunity today, I would never make a run for something like that. It didn't make sense. But in the infancy of the first business, we went for a lot of things that today we would be much more cautious with our capture costs on something like that.
Now, was your first business an economically disadvantaged women-owned small business as well?
It was.
So you carried that forward?
We
also?
did, and so went through the process on being certified the first time. So all of those things, just knowing what to do, knowing the regulations and what it looks like. Getting a GSA schedule for the second time is a lot easier than fumbling and trying to figure it out the first time.
Right. And FTS Federal is headquartered in Birmingham, Alabama, yes, right?
We're in Birmingham.
Which is not a center of gravity for defense contracting, but it's close to Huntsville, it's close to Montgomery, it's a short flight from Washington D.C. Mm-hmm. So some advantages to being in Birmingham.
I think the geographic advantages. I mean, my goodness, we're right between Huntsville and Montgomery, so right. we can call on Air Force very, very easily. Best being one of our big clients because they run all the information systems for the Air Force. So that's fantastic. Huntsville with Army and MDA and NASA right there. It's becoming, when I first was going to Huntsville in 2007, the town 2007 to now, it's remarkable, the growth. So those are two benefits there. And then it's just easy to get to DC. I'm up here every other week. I've had people have no idea I'm not here all the time because, it's like, we can make meetings happen so easily with direct flights. I think that Birmingham, we were able to take the entire corporate team from company A to company B, and that's an easy thing to do. So, we've tinkered with moving here, and I just can't imagine. It's the backbone of the company is in Birmingham.
It's not the traffic in Washington, D.C. that's just waiting you?
Well, there's that.
So you also mentioned that you started your first company, it sounds like a few years before the 2008 financial crisis, the Great Recession, and then you started FTS just a couple years before the COVID pandemic. So were there some lessons learned there as far as getting through some difficult, turbulent economic times?
Turbulent's a great word. Timing, we'll just call it. My timing is not great twice now. We had contracts ready to go April 2nd, 2020, and the world stopped. And we thought at the time it was a 3-weeker, and we're trying to figure out what to do. And then when it became, the base is shut, like it's closed, and we're in a skiff, and what do we do with that? And I try to remind everyone all the time, I'm like, this is when there was zero remote work. Right. That was not a thing. And trying to figure out rotations in a skiff to do, where we could be 6 feet apart and do, if the prime has it 8 to 5, can we get in 6? And we were working, at night. It was an insane time for everyone. I would say lessons learned both in 2008, which was equally as challenging in a different way, is to, I hate to say it this way, but you just have to be strong and hunker down. It's one of those things when people say, I want to go into small business, I want to do this, or I get asked a lot by young people and do some things with the Women's Chamber and things like that. People ask all the time, and I'm like, just think ahead. Can you do this for 2 years without any revenue? Can you do that?
That's the true test.
And if you can, go.
Yeah. You're listening to The Business of Defense with my guest, Leanne Hope, founder and CEO of FTS Federal. We'll be right back. Welcome back to The Business of Defense, sponsored by ASMC on Federal News Network. I'm talking with Leanne Hope, founder and president of FTS Federal. As a seasoned founder and serial entrepreneur, Leanne has unique insights into creating customer value and a corporate culture of innovation. With over 20 years of experience, she has successfully navigated the often turbulent and highly variable landscape of government contracting. Leanne, I'd like to get in a little bit to your personal story here. What led you into government contracting as opposed to going, just on the commercial side?
I started in the commercial space. Worked for a solutioning firm, huge telecom contract that at a very young age I started just running. I started that by accident because I was working for someone, and again, this is tuition, and he sort of just spaced out a little bit, if we'll say. So I was getting these phone calls from very high level people that high dollars were on the line, and I had to make decisions. So fantastic tuition. When that was happening, I'm in Birmingham. I'm like, hey guys, Huntsville, hey guys, Huntsville, hey guys, Huntsville. Speaking with the SES at PEO Missiles and Space, I'm like, hey, there's really innovative work that we can look at here. There was zero appetite from the leadership of the company to, they're like, so you want us to invest all this money up front to maybe win something a year from now this conversation. When they really just said a firm no, and it's a hassle and all this security. They didn't want to touch it. I just decided I do want to touch it, so I did. Started out with PEO Missiles and Space. My first contract was Integrated Battle Command System, first of its kind. It had been Integrated Air Missile Defense prior, and the contract wanted us to have all of these people that didn't exist. So I really enjoy the first ones. Fire, first time. Yeah. Integrated Battle Command System, first time. First DoD-wide DISA level ICAM program. I really like the challenges. So we won that. It ended up being a 9-year program. We went all the way through testing. and it was information assurance. So before we did cyber back in the day, we did info assurance. It was a great program, learned so much. It was a cool program. It was a challenge because we were working with Army, Navy, Air Force, and the thoughts from each. But it was a really interesting thing, and I'm a young person that is just, I could not get enough of it. So from there, we went into doing, on the FM side of the house, we started doing some systems work. Marine Corps situation back in 2011, I think, 2012 maybe, which sort of led us into the fire arena. So we were always doing more of the IT side of the house, but in a business setting, so either an FM setting, on the IT side of the house, the systems, even just through documentation. So a lot of the NFRs were cleared just through, there was no documentation. And, we were day, one, where literally it was interviewing people. What do you do today? And they're like, it's in Mary's file cabinet. She does it. She's been doing it for 30 years. So we started there, which is fine. It works. There was no fire compliance. So why would she document it that way? It's just, she does it. So we started there, and then we just exploded with doing fire across multiple agencies. The challenge with that, with Company A, is that we're touching every system at Air Force. And I'm in Birmingham wanting to call on Bess, and I'm starting to do more and more work on that side of the house, which I really enjoy and is really cool. We started really coming against some mostly perceived OCI issues and a few real ones. And so I couldn't go after work that I wanted to go after, and I could see the landscape. I mean, this is about to explode. Cloud was starting to be a thing, and we were starting to look at, what happens if we sunset that data center, and what happens if it's a hybrid cloud situation, and so all these puzzles. I'm a solutioner. That's what I like to do. So Company B made sense to novate contracts off and to start doing this so that we didn't have some of those same issues. Now, we still do fire work. We're just not in every single thing to prevent us from going after some of the cloud migration work and some of the cyber work.
You talked a lot about technology, and obviously, and innovation, and culture is closely aligned to that. Can you talk a little bit about the culture you're trying to develop within FTS Federal, this culture of innovation, and how you match that up with your government customers? And you mentioned the services, who all have their unique cultures as well. So how do you ultimately, if you want to deliver a capability, you've got to bring those cultures together and that technology together to deliver that. So.
Absolutely. That's a fantastic question. I respect the culture of who we're working with. So I think that's important. And then culture, to me, as I get a little irritated with the culture question, because I've worked at the place where there's the plaque in the lobby that tells you what their culture is. And then when you experience working there, not quite it. So it's super important to me, having done it twice now, to build a culture of not just the plaque on the wall, but it is truly who we are, the innovation. So what I call it is, we like to hire blank white paper people. Yeah. And I always say that there are people that the blank paper freaks them out. And typically the folks that we hire are like, okay, sleeves up, and let's start writing and figure out a solution. So I think you can do both of those things while respecting the challenges within our client, because some of them they're real and complicated, and we have to work with them. And again, to the podcast, the business of planes have to be in the air. Right. We also have to be compliant and do those things. So I think innovation comes into just how can we solve something to make sure that business happens, the planes are flying, but we also have to get this DevSecOps implemented out. So how do we do both of those things? We are a small business, so we can do things in a nimble way. We can go in and do a risk assessment if someone is moving half of their portfolio to the cloud. What does it look like to move the other half? What's that cost? What are the implications of that? And let's think through that so that a commander has in his pocket information to make decisions. That's where that data analytics come in, and just thinking through some of those innovative things that maybe isn't a 2-year RFI out on the street. It's smaller, but it's important information to be able to make business decisions.
How difficult is talent management today? Finding the talent, unemployment's still at historically low levels. People have a lot of options out there. So Are you finding it difficult to hire the talent you need, with particularly in some of these areas of emerging technology?
It's always difficult in our space because, I mean, with the clearances we need to do our jobs,
Right.
you know, it just is a smaller pool. I think where we have some really success is that we know the programs that would build a person that we need to do the next gen thing, because a lot of times we are working on things that haven't been done yet. So I can't, when we get into mobility, I can't get into hiring a team of 50 people that have 5G. You know, we're looking at who has 4G with this level of experience on this size program that we can, you know, read them in, if you will, on what we're doing, and they can be innovative and morph to that type of work. So that's a helpful tool. COVID and the working remotely has just changed the landscape of everyone and everything that we do. So we have challenges with that sometimes because people do want to work remotely, and when that's available, awesome. Some of our skiff work, you know, we just can't
Right.
do that. And yeah, I think most people that do that type of work know that. So it's not as much of a challenge, but we have definitely had to change the way that we look at certain things, and how are we going to hire for this when we know it's going to be a challenge because of these factors. The other thing is we are often hiring SMEs, a little bit different than, you know, if we're hiring, you know, a different generation of folks. So they've worked in the military, they know the culture, they know, you know, that sort of thing. So that's been helpful as well, more so in FTS than I've done in a previous life, where we had to have, you know, 20 people that have 2 years of experience. Say that can be more difficult, but what we're doing now, almost everyone's been doing what they're doing for quite some time.
If you can predict the future, you know, where is government contracting, defense contracting going in the next 5 years, and where will FTS Federal be in that?
And, you know, crystal ball, right?
Right.
I think that it's an interesting take currently on some of the small business opportunities within DISA, small business opportunities that weren't there before. You know, it's the same sort of thing with the big fours, which are clients of mine, with fire. You know, you're going to be a subcontractor there. DISA is starting to put out more small business opportunities that we can directly bid on and have the customer's ear, so we can be more innovative, and that brings value, which is a really cool thing. Navy just put out a small business on the FM side, so that's been a real interesting thing. We are going a million miles an hour to chase some of those. Chase some of that work that we can do ourselves, and then when it makes sense to partner with our largest to do that, as you know, there are things that a big four can do and a huge IPA firm can do that, you know, small FTS cannot do, and so we want to be a part of those things as well. So 5 years from now, I see really cool things happening with IL6. I see really cool things happening as more things actually migrate to the cloud versus we've been planning on doing them for so long. That's a really cool technology that's going to impact the warfighter with mobility that we don't have today, but it's being developed now, which is really cool. And then FTS right there with it. We go to a million conferences. We go to things to make sure that we understand what's coming next, so that we can be on the forefront on those cutting edge technology, as we sort of, you know, computing at the edge used to be a buzzword, and now it's happening. So some of those really emerging technologies that we're at every DISA conference listening. So I'm excited for our warfighter with some of these innovations that are finally happening that, you know, we've been working on or knowing need to happen for quite some time.
Great. Well, last question, possibly the most difficult one and maybe a little controversial. Where's the best place to get a hot chicken sandwich in Birmingham?
Eugene's.
Eugene's. All right.
Eugene's. Sorry to offend, but Eugene's.
All right. I look forward to it on my next trip down to Birmingham. I'd like to thank today's guest, Leanne Hope, founder and president of FTS Federal, for giving us insight into her unique journey to establish FTS Federal, build her team, and introduce transformative technology in the federal sector. Watch The Business of Defense next month, where we bring you inside the companies working to drive change in the defense sector, to hear directly from their business leaders and understand how they create value for their companies and their customers. And check out ASMC's website at asmconline.org to learn more and register for upcoming education and professional development opportunities, including the Professional Development Institute in Phoenix, Arizona this May. I'm Rich Brady, CEO of the American Society of Military Comptrollers. You are listening to the Federal News Network. For more on this discussion, visit federalnewsnetwork.com and search ASMC. Thank you.